Hello, welcome. My name is Rebecca. I'm going to do a short video today on perspective, on how to produce a disappearing line that's predictable within your drawings. You don't need to be as careful when you're doing something like a landscape with trees, rivers, oceans, that kind of thing, or curved things like, boats and rocks and things. But when you're doing buildings, specifically buildings and streets, it's important that you have a predictable disappearing line on your page. Let's get started. I'm going to start off cheating a little bit. I'm using a light table, and I'm using a piece of paper on which I have drawn lines that are exactly level with 90 degrees to the bottom, because I want to know where the ends of my buildings are. I'm going to just use this as a guide. This is going to be my disappearing point in the center and my disappearing point on the outside edges. You can certainly do it without having this extra help, but for someone who's a beginner, it doesn't hurt to do this. So I'm going to put a plain piece of paper, if I can find a plain piece of paper. I'm going to put a plain piece of paper over top, and I'm going to just use that as my guide. So this dot in the center is your disappearing line. And everything in all directions are going to come away from that. So we're talking about things like streets and buildings and windows. We are not talking about things like landscapes with, trees and mountains and things, but finite things that have straight lines. So I'm going to start, I'm not starting exactly in there. That's just my disappearing point. So I'm going to start out a little bit from that point, and I'm going to go as far as this suggested end of the building line. So let's see, let's make it quite, so I'm going to go as far as that in that direction, and I'm going to do this. We're going to assume you can go as high as you want to. I'm going to go sort of medium height, and I'm going to start up from where that line was and draw out to the corner of the building. I'm going to do, and then, so because this is a perpendicular line here, which is the corner of your building, I'm going to do a perpendicular line here, which is the other end of your building. So we're going to do, and it doesn't have to be the same distance out. You can start right there. It doesn't really matter where you start. I would make the bottom of this building approximately the same as this one. Otherwise, it'll look a little wonky. So I'm going to go in. There's my disappearing line, and I will stop short. I'm going to do the same thing, approximate same height at the edge of this building, and I'm going to go approximate same height as that one. And then perpendicular line here, perpendicular line here. The outside, so if you go across, this is your disappearing line here, therefore your disappearing line out here will be approximately the same height. So I'm going to join that up with the edge of that building. You can make it go right off the page, you don't have to. I'm going to do the top of this building going down to that disappearing line, but stopping short. And that also will have a perpendicular line straight up and down. These lines are always straight up and down, these ones. And this one, so there's my disappearing line. I'll start at the corner, but I'm only going to make this one a little shorter. So join that perpendicular line to the top of that building, up from there, and a line down. So there's the basic building, then within that building, again, using this as your starting point. So the windows in your building, so say this one's going to be a factory. So this one's going to have a bunch of windows. So I'm going to do, you know, a bunch of small windows. And again, touch your disappearing line before you rotate down. And if it's so this will be straight down, straight down, straight down, and perpendicular lines to make your windows. I'm doing this in pen. You certainly can do it in pencil. First time at least. Starting from your disappearing line, line this up. So I'm going to just make another set of we're going to pretend this is a factory or some kind of commercial building. I'm going to make these approximately the same height just for aesthetic reasons. And so I'm going to follow the first line to make these look similar. I think that's how they build buildings. And I certainly hope you can see this because I can't. Okay, so the same thing with this here. I would start at your line here and I would aim for, if this line was to go all the way out to here, so if I join that to my disappearing line and then start my windows in this one, same thing here. If I carry this out to this line, join up my disappearing line, which I can hardly see what I'm doing because I covered it up, but you get the idea, right? And same thing. Where would that line end up at the corner? Where's my disappearing line there? 1, 2, 3. And they appear to get to where they're almost touching. Okay, follow that line. There to that line. And then these lines are always straight up and down. They do not change with perspective. Okay, so that looks like you're looking at a building that's going away. We haven't done, I'm not worried about doing roofs and heights and things. I'm talking about this specific. So on this side, this is a different building. It doesn't have to look anything like this one. So I'm going to start at my disappearing line, rest my ruler against it, and I'm going to just make this something like with a storefront with an entrance, I suppose. Okay, and so I'll go, oops, up from that one, up from that one, and I would say there's probably going to be a door in this one, so we'll make 1, 2, door, window, window. So you get the idea. Okay. Now, when you're talking something like something organic that's like a lane, country lane kind of thing, I'll just leave this as the same. So I'm going to make a building here just so that I have sort of somewhere to start. Actually, I think I'm going to move my disappearing line down here. Move my paper up. Okay, so if I make a building here and rotate, there. And I just want to set the background to what I'm actually going to do here. So give me one sec here. Okay, so I won't even bother with windows and doors. That's a building. So when you're doing something with the country, it's the same idea. So if your disappearing line is along here, and it can be way over here, it doesn't have to be in the center. So let's just move it over here. So I'm going to make a road that goes up to this building, and because that height is my disappearing line, so when you've got a road and that it won't be that wavy, you probably make it interesting by putting something like a fence. So I'm going to just start putting perpendicular lines that are close together, getting farther apart. And there is a formula for how far apart these are. I don't personally like measuring when it comes to things like natural organic things. I'd rather be a little off than look like it came out of a machine of some kind. So basically what I'm doing here is, as it gets closer to you, they get larger, they get farther apart, and they get more detailed. So, you know, these ones, so we're going to say this is a fence of natural man-made posts that are not all the same height, or not all the same width even necessarily. So I'm going to start out big. I'm going to get smaller in height and smaller in width as they get away. Now, I'm doing this in pen, unfortunately, so I can't fix my mistake. My mistake is that I didn't leave one of these out, because I would have one of these like be falling over. So erase that one. So I would have one of these like falling over, or even laying on the ground. And so if this is a country and it's a barbed wire fence, so your barbed wire or your fence lines that are holding it together gets closer together as you go farther away. So this one will be way up here, and with each one it's sort of following a line that's going smaller and smaller and smaller. Okay, on this side, if you had fence posts on this side, they would start in the grass and they would go up into the over top of the road, because that's how you push back things and make them look three-dimensional. And then again, these would get smaller and smaller and closer and closer. Same thing with grass. Do put things like grass over top, because the grass doesn't just grow where you want it to. It grows, you know, weeds and things grow over top, and that pushes that back. This one, you can put them between, which will make this look like it's in front, but you can also put something else in front of this one. Cheat sheet. So this is the one that's sort of organic. It still follows the same rules, but it's hand-drawn other than the building. The one that's man-made is going to be a lot more specific to perspective. I hope that this helps. You can use, if we go, Ty, it's your turn now. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for listening, and I hope it helped a little bit with putting a picture into your mind that you need to have a predictable disappearing point, especially when there's buildings and streets in your drawing. Have a great day. We'll talk to you again. Bye for now.